Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. We have the pleasure of having Emil here. How you doing, my brother?
Good, brother. How are you?
Doing good, man. This guy, he's got a lot going on, to say the least. He's trying to compete with me for the busiest person on the planet. I think he's winning right now, although he just got back from Mexico. So
yeah,
he's behind.
I feel behind now.
I saw those emails that you had. So and the text. But he's got over 100 doors in long-term multifamily and single family. He's got an Airbnb business, 38, almost 40 plus properties, which I don't know why he does all that many, because he knows how hard that is sometimes. But we're gonna dig into all that stuff. How you doing, my brother? How's it going? Let's get this story started.
Yeah, man. I feel blessed. I'm very grateful to be on. When we had you on our podcast, SDR Secrets, we had such a blast, and the hour went by so quickly. So I'm kind of looking forward to kind of zone 2 of that. But yeah, as you said, just came back from Mexico. It was amazing to just be out and be back out in the world, right? Like be able to go to the beach and you know, we always think that like it's never going to go back to normal. But as soon as you're on a beach ordering a Corona, you're like, okay, like life is back to normal.
Yeah.
Perfect. It didn't even take that long, you know? So yeah, very blessed, man. Like I just feel very grateful to, you know, have the life that I have.
That's an extremely important part. And the reason I want to touch on that is I was telling somebody yesterday, we have a choice, meaning we have a choice to perceive our life any which way we want it. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. It doesn't matter what's going on around in your life. There's always going to be obstacles in your life. And you can choose to be present with your wife for your birthday and be in a place of pure joy. And the reason I bring this up is because in the last 6 months, I've gone to 15 to 16 states. And I have chosen to perceive the fact that I see families out playing with their kids. I see people on the beach smiling. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is it's not what the news says, guys. People are out there having a good time. There are people that are thriving through this pandemic. I'm the healthiest I've ever been because I decided to double down on my health and fitness and my mindset. And I haven't seen a gym for like 6 months, but I've been doing with bands and push-ups and everything. So I love that you were thinking about that when you were out on the beach.
Yeah, dude. It's so amazing because I mean, one of the main philosophies that I live by, it's always that life happens for us, never to us. And I think there is no better time to understand that right now. Right? Because regardless of what we think or whatever school of thought you're in, right? It's real, it's fake, it's a conspiracy, whatever the fuck you think. It's happening for a reason, right? And it's not accidental, right? So you just gotta kind of like release control and kind of go with the flow and seeing like, okay, what is my opportunity right now, right? Like what is my blessing now, right? What can I do that I haven't been able to do?
Because you want to know why? We as society, meaning we as people, have decided that our life needs to fit in a certain package that we deem necessary. And I'm going to let you in on a secret. The universe, Mother Nature, doesn't give a shit about your vision. And if you're open up to what I try to tell my clients and try to tell everybody, if you live in your core values and you show up in those, the rest of the stuff will figure itself out.
Yeah. Also because you live in a bubble, right? Like as long as you're in integrity with yourself, that's all that matters, right? Because if you're centered in integrity with yourself, whatever life kind of throws at you, you look at it through those lenses. And as long as you're holding your ground, you don't care.
Because you're holding space and value for who you are as a person is so much greater than that, because you're honoring yourself. Meaning, and when you do that, you can show up an intention and show up with the right energy. Because it's like I just told my client, I can't control what happens out there in the world, but I could sure as shit control how I show up on this call for you and create the space that you need to make the changes that you need. And that's what I can offer for you every day. He asked me straight up, how do you stay so fired up, man? And I go, because I'm doing what I was born to do, and I live my life through intention. And this is what I was put on this earth to. And guess what? The money, the space, the things that it brings me, maybe not be where I want it to be, but I guarantee if I wake up every day and live through my intention, that they'll eventually show up.
Yeah. And I heard, and I don't know, was it you or I don't remember who I heard this analogy from, but it was an analogy of how life is a deck of cards. And assume you open the deck of cards, you open the box, you know all the cards are there, right? You know for a fact every single card is there. But if you're looking for the aces, you're going to start turning cards and you keep turning them over and you're like, fuck, there's no aces here. But you know that they're there. So you just got to kind of go through the motion and like keep turning the cards over, right? Like keep whatever it is, right? Keep doing your exercises, keep eating healthy, keep doing it. You're like, it's not working. And then all of a sudden, boom, an ace.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just keep doing it, boom, an ace. But sometimes, bro, like the aces are going to be at the end of the deck. And you'll get 4 in a row or 4 back to back. And some days they're going to be all over the deck, right? So like the only thing that we can do is fucking keep turning the cards over, right? And then once that deck is over, you open the next deck. But the thing is, when you get to the end of that deck, you gain confidence. So every deck that you do, you're like, I'm confident because I've done this before. I've gone through 15, 20 cards without an ace. And then the ace came. Right? And then every time you build, I think, but honestly, the biggest pandemic that we actually have on a mindset point of view is that people have no word with themselves. We have completely lost that. We're great at keeping my word with you, keeping my word with everybody else. But then when the door closes and you're home by yourself, you have no word to yourself. You're going to say you're going to do this, and then you don't. And it falls, and the chains of that get strong so quickly. And then all of a sudden you're like, I haven't done shit with my life. And then you look back and it's like, it's all the small choices, all those wrong small choices that you make that compound, right? The compound effect works both ways, works for you and works against you. So it's all a matter of like, what are you putting in? You know what I mean? Like you keep putting in shitty choices, and long term, you're going to start thinking things that are not true. It's just based on like the fact that you keep consistently taking the wrong action. And then you're compounding it over and over and over. And you're like, nothing is changing, man. You're like, you have no word. Like you don't look out for you. How is the universe supposed to look out for you?
It's beautiful. No, and I mean, I had the epiphany at 36 because I lived in that victim mentality for 20 years. And I realized something. I could tell you where I was. I could tell you when it hit me. It felt like I got smacked in the face. Guys, it is not the promises that you break to other people that destroy you. It's the promises you break to yourself. And you do not understand the magnitude and eroding of your internal confidence every time you break that promise to yourself. And that's why when I have somebody that's really down there, if they have a drug addiction or they're terrible with their life, that's why I make sure they go to the gym first, because it's the quickest and smallest way to make small promises. Keep them to yourself by showing up for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, all those things. You have to create wins to get, like, perfect example. We sold a house, right? It was the first real estate property I ever done. Like I sold my first investment. The cash was nice, but the confidence of 2.5 years to buy it, renovate it, Airbnb it, and sell it. Dude, I can do anything. I woke up and I go, holy shit. I knew what I was talking about. And I was like, and that, you can't put a price tag on that.
It's the proof of concept, man. I had that moment after my Ironman, right? So I signed up to do an Ironman, and I signed up for the wrong reasons, right? I signed up because I want to recognition so I was part of M1 Go Abundance, and a bunch of the Go Abundance guys were doing Ironman. So I'm like, I'm going to sign up. I'm going to do it. And I just wanted to be seen for my accomplishments, right? And I signed up, but I lacked integrity around it because I didn't really want to do it. Like, I have never been a long distance athlete. I used to love to CrossFit, you know what I mean? So like, I am that type of athlete. Like, I'm like an hour, I go all out, you know? But I signed up for it and I gave my word to other people that I was going to do it, right? I was 45, 60 pounds overweight when I did it. My longest bike ride, I did a full Ironman. My longest bike ride training up to that race was an 80 miles. I had never biked for longer than 80 miles, right? So I showed up to this race, but from the moment I got in the water, I said, my feet are fast, my body is strong, tonight I'll be an Ironman. And I literally did not say anything else for 15 hours and 56 minutes. My feet are fast, my body is strong, tonight I'll be an Ironman. But dude, the day after, I felt like I could do whatever the fuck I want. I'm like, I did an Ironman without really training. Right? I'm like, I gained a confidence in my head game of like what I can make my body do through my mind. That you look around, you're like, where else can I do this? Right? Like, I did it here. Can I do it in my relationship? Can I do it in my business? Can I do it with my family? Where can you show up? Where can you bring that level of discipline? I think discipline gets a bad rap, you know, because discipline, like Jaco Wilkins says, I think that's his name. Discipline is really freedom because it's not for what you gain at the end of the day. It's just who you become in the process makes all the difference, right? It's what you said, the addict that doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, that could never think about being healthy. They go to a gym for like a week and then a month and then 6 months. And you're like, wow, I can alter this life. I can direct it to whatever the fuck I want to do.
You're preaching because you're what people see now, right? They see, oh, Austin lost 50 pounds. He's so confident. What you didn't see was the 3 a.m., 2 a.m.s that I'm listening to Gary Vee because my life is in shambles and he's just talking in my head. You don't see when I was out on a soccer field running 7 miles at 3 a.m. in 40-degree weather with my shirt off, slamming Imagine Dragons through my head, yelling at the top of my lungs. You don't see that I had to remold my mind, right? And the thing is, you're 100% right. The sobriety for me was like, I went 26 days. I had to go 30 and I couldn't make it 30. I'm like, I fucking need a drink. Well, then I had a drink and I was like beating myself up because I had a drink. And then I was like, okay, in 2 more months, I'm going to try again. Well, then I tried and I'm like, let's go 60 days. Well, I got to 60 days and I'm like, holy shit, I feel great. Let's like keep chasing that feeling. And then I got to 90 days and I was like, screw it. Let's go 6 months. And then you get to like 6 months and you're like, I'm good. And you're like, because what I figured something out the other day and see if this resonates with you. I found out what we want as people. I really did. I figured it out. I'm the smartest guy in the world. You know what we want? I'm joking, guys. What we want is opportunity and growth. Seriously. You know when people get disenfranchised, you know when people give up on their job because they don't feel like there's anywhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know when people give up in their relationships when they don't feel like they've found everything out? Well, have you really? Because I would imagine as the relationship goes on, you change as who you are as a person. So get to know that person again.
Mm-hmm.
When we feel like we don't have the opportunity to grow or seek opportunities, that's when we die. So you can't just get out of college and stop learning. You can't. This is an everyday process. I learn every day about myself, about people around me. And perfect example. I had lunch yesterday with a guy who's been in real estate for 45 years. He's like 67, 70. I was like, dude, what the hell? Retire. He's like, Austin, what the fuck am I going to do? He's like, I love this. Because it keeps me sharp. He's like, I have my routine and I get to travel when I want to. And I thought to myself, like, that is a man that is truly doing what he loves. And he knows that if he stops, his mind is going to just go.
Mm-hmm. But if you think about it, right, the healthiest people, and I was born and raised in Italy on an island. And if you watch Netflix, Zac Efron just did a bunch of like
it's amazing.
documentaries.
It's amazing, yeah.
So the island in Italy, that's where I'm from.
Okay.
And we have some of it's a blue zone. We have some of the oldest people that have ever lived, but they all have routines. And they all, if you think about it, like, right, those people that work on the land as farmers, they never stop working, right? There is always, they wake up early, they go for a walk, they water, they do the things, right? So they have a purpose. And then they have the people around them that kind of live in the same purpose, right? And that's what makes such a difference, to have that network of people around you, which, I mean, I don't have to tell you, but it just makes such a fucking difference. Because if you make out time in your day, like, I have a learning hour, right? That every day I spend an hour learning something that it's nothing to do with my main business, right? So it's nothing to do with real estate, but it's something about like either relationship, mindset, different things I want to learn, right? Like options trading, just to not even do something, just for what you were saying. You just got to keep on learning, because then you cross pollinate your mind with other ideas from other things. And it just kind of crisscrosses, and then your brain just makes connections that it didn't have before. Not because you're stupid, just because you didn't know.
Well, and I thought about this like this week, so it's a perfect conversation. I've done private equity, I've done hospitality, I've done real estate, multifamily, single family, all those things, Airbnb, all those things. And I thought to myself, you know what this was? This was all training to be able to coach all my clients, because I have the knowledge base to handle any investing questions that they bring to the table. And instead of looking at that time as wasted, or I didn't like that job, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't think, well, you're so in your own head that you don't understand that everything is a step. Look, I look at guys now, right? And I'm sure you laugh too. I've got friends that are 22 years old, 23, that can retire right now with real estate. I'm dead serious.
Yeah. Oh no, same.
And I go, hey guys, guess what? You got 60 years. What are you going to do with your life? You're going to be 5 different people. And they're really going, holy shit, I'm at 26. I'm going to be bored. Like, you have to find a greater reason.
Yeah. But also you got to have gratitude for what's possible right now, right? To me, that what you just said, it's insanity. The people are like, I'm going to retire in 26 and I'm going to be bored. I'm like, how can you be bored? Right? To me, like, somebody that's like, well, if I don't do this, I'll be bored. You're crazy. You know the amount of shit that you can just randomly do? Like, I taught myself how to make like homemade chocolate yesterday. Just if you deep dive on thing, like, I want to learn how to like cook, agricultural, grow things. Like, we're so deeply ignorant to how many things you can learn, that to me, the fact that people are like, if I don't do this thing that I know, I'll be bored. What about everything else that is around you?
But you want to know why that is, right?
I think it's fear.
Yeah, it's fear of not being great at it.
Yeah. But how did you become great at it?
But hear me out, and this is why I get so frustrated. Nobody's allowed to grow and work towards something great anymore, because we have to do it right now. Like, oh, Austin, your lighting on your podcast is bad. The sounding sounds bad. Your subtitles are wrong. Who cares? Like,
fucking do it.
Yeah, just get out there and do it, man.
Yeah.
Like, my issue with real estate right now, and that's why I want to transition, even though I could talk about this for all day long. This is like my perfect conversation. Is that I believe that the reason these young guys are succeeding is because they don't know any better. There's no fear. They don't have fear in life. They're like just falling forward, and then they wake up. And then you get a 35-year-old guy that's a doctor, a 40-year-old guy. He has too much context around his life to take the leap. That's my new theory.
No, and I am the perfect example for that theory, right?
Okay.
So when I took over my business, so I graduated college with a very useful degree in accounting and finance, right? Very useful. And this was 2009, 2010. So right after the huge financial meltdown, I went to university in Geneva, Switzerland. I'm like, there is more banks than people. I want to be a Wolf of Wall Street. I graduate, did quite well in school. I show up on a couple of job interviews. They're like, hey, man, we're not hiring Swiss people right now. The financial landscape is in shambles. Huge banks have gone bankrupt. Like, we don't like, people hate us. People hate all people that work in the stock market. So like, what are we going to do, right? So I moved back here to the States. My mom and sister were living here. And the only job I could find at that time was a maintenance guy at an apartment complex. Okay. College degree. My programming says this job is what? Beneath me, right? Yeah. I was plunging toilets, painting shit. Like, one time I go to an apartment, tenant calls me. There was an inch and a half of shit all over the apartment. Right. And there I am with like a water vacuuming this thing and like dumping it out. And I was just like, what am I doing with my life? Right. But that apartment complex was a 40-unit apartment complex that did vacation rentals and short-term rentals. Way ahead of its time. Right. And the guy that I worked for, this Israeli guy, became my business dad. Right. And then so happened that a couple years later, this was like January 2012, he got a divorce, wanted to move back to Israel. And he's like, hey, do you want the business? I'll sell you some of my apartments. Can you ask your family if they can give you money? I can help you, right? I'll talk to the bank for you. I was 22 years old. Worked as a maintenance guy there. Kind of saw the business. But what you said just now, fuck yes, let's do it. Did I have any clue what I was getting into? So I went from working as a maintenance guy to owning a management company that ran 40 apartments, to then owning like 5, to then owning 12, to then owning 16 apartments. And this was all between the age of like 22, 24. I had no clue. No clue. But what I knew is that I wanted to do it. And what I knew is that I was willing to do it. And what I knew was the business, right? I could physically feel the business because I worked in it. But going back to your conversation from earlier, was the financial crisis happening and me being a maintenance guy and me having to get the water vacuum to clean up an inch and a half of shit around an apartment, was that accidental? Or was that my training for the opportunity? I choose to view it as my training for my opportunity, right? Because if I wasn't there, if I would have quit because that job was beneath me, this conversation would never fucking happen also, right? Because I wouldn't be in vacation rentals. I wouldn't be doing this. I didn't own any units. I would be giving you no value as a real estate person because maybe I wouldn't have been a real estate person.
What made you stay?
The fact that like I had this conversation with my dad, right? And being Italian, our family is very much involved in our life, right? And I kind of told him that I feel I could do better. And the thing with my dad is always like, okay, just wait a little bit and see what happens, right? And sometimes I know this is counterproductive for our generation, but that's what you got to do. You just got to wait a second and really see. Because then once the water kind of gets calm, then you really get to see the picture, right? And when you see the picture, maybe the situation is actually good for you. Maybe this is what you were meant to do, right? Because that taught me so much humbleness. Also in how I behave myself when I go to a hotel room, the way I look after a hotel room, having worked in hospitality, right? And every person in hospitality will tell you the best people that tip the best in hospitality are people that used to work in hospitality, right? Because you know how fucking hard the job is, and you know how much people don't usually respect you. So you look out for your own. That gave me something very similar. It made me very grateful, very humble when I go and I interact with people, right? I was the maintenance guy, right? So how do you think I treat maintenance people? Right? But a lot of the times, man, you got to move to the other side of the wall to actually feel how life feels on your own skin.
I'm going to go back and re-listen to that because I have a tendency, or I did in my 20s, to move a little quicker, meaning like maybe not sit in it, right? And I think what I have to catch myself up, and I always like to call myself out on the podcast because it allows people to drop their guard and call themselves out. Every time my head's in a bad space, I'm worried about what I'm going to get, what I deserve. Every time. And when I switch it on how can I serve somebody, how can I lift somebody up, how can I make somebody else's day better, I kick myself out of it right away.
Yeah.
It's the truth.
Yeah. And also the word you use there, right? Like when I wait and kind of sit with it, that is such an important concept that it's so kind of lost right now, because all we want is to change our state, right? Constantly. But the thing is that people don't realize that it's a conscious choice, right? So when you change your state, you're feeling shitty, you get a drink. All you're trying to do is just escape what you're feeling. But the moment you sit down and you realize, why do I want to drink? What is the reason behind what it is that I'm doing? If you're able to kind of split them and you can do the action without it being a reason to bypass the way you're feeling, then you can do it. But if you're eating or drinking or smoking or snorting, whatever the fuck it is that you're doing, because you don't want to feel something and you don't address it, that feeling will keep coming up. And that's why you need more drinks. And then when one thing is not working, you add a second thing, right? And then you add a third thing. And so much of changing your chemistry, you know, we're very aware that like we think with our brain, but we feel with our belly. So how many times are you trying to change your feelings by eating something and you don't realize that all it is changing the chemistry in your gut that has so many neuroreceptors there? They're just changing your mood. And fucking sugar, bro. Like we live in a country that has sugar.
Dude, you know what? It's so funny that you say that. Guys, we might get to real estate. I don't really care because this is the greatest conversation
Yeah,
ever.
sorry. Was this a real estate podcast?
Who cares? Who cares? Dude, I feel like I'm talking to my mentors. We never talk about real estate. Look, guys, this is so much more important. All I care about right now is learning about how to optimize my body, what to bring in, stuff like that. They said two things that are super important is that don't do it if you don't want to, but they're saying by fasting, right? Because I do intermittent fasting and I fast for like a day or two sometimes. What it does is it puts your body in a state of shock that allows the shitty cells to die. But in society that we live in, we don't never allow ourselves the time for those cells to die. We want to soothe it with Netflix, with drinking, with everything. Like, here's what I learned. You think don't get me wrong, I feel great on the fasting, but you know what the fasting has done? It has allowed me to control my appetite and realize that I can control when I eat and don't. And when you can conquer that, you can conquer anything. It's really crazy.
Bro, I just did not too long ago, and it's so funny that we're talking now because it sounds like we're in such a similar part of life, right? So I did back in May. So quarantine started. I'm like, I'm going to learn how to make bread, right? I love to cook. So I learned how to make bread from scratch. I was drinking every day during quarantine, right? So I woke up the moment Florida reopened, I gained a shit ton of weight. Like I gained like 40 pounds over the like 3-4 months of quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, this needs to change, right? So Andy Frisella has this thing called 75 hard.
Yep.
And that was the gift there, right? So I did the 75 hard with intermittent fasting and 1 day of fasting a week, a 24-hour fast. What is hilarious to me now is that after Mexico, because in Mexico I ate breakfast and everything else, I came home and Monday morning by 9:30, because I was having breakfast at 7:30, I was starving.
Mm-hmm.
Starving, right? What we refer to as starving. But then you remind yourself of your accomplishment and your achievements, and you're like, are you hungry? Haven't we done a whole 48-hour fast? Haven't we have done a 7-day juice fast? Don't we intermittent fasting for 16 to 18 hours every day leading up to Mexico? We were in Mexico for 3 fucking days. Now you're starving. You're going to act like you're going to fucking die. And then you get out of it, right? And you look at yourself, how you playing yourself. And you're like, oh shit.
But I'm going to put this in context for people to understand, right? This is great. This is the same thing people do in real estate investing. And I just dealt with this with a client. He feels like if he doesn't take his foot off the pedal, if he takes his foot off the pedal, he's going to lose it all. And what you're telling the universe is you're not good enough. Dude,
you don't believe in you.
If you've done 140 deals and you decide to take a month off to go to Italy and hang out with your family, you can pick it back up again. But we condition ourselves to say this is the only way it's going to be successful. And what you're telling the universe is you don't believe in yourself enough.
Yeah. And also you're out of touch with nature. There is no other animal on this planet that works 24/7. Right? There is no crop, there is no tree that produces fruit all year round. Right? But then we are disconnected from nature, right? We're disconnected from the reality of things. But what happens if you go to an apple tree and you're like, hey, make me an apple now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What do you want? This is not my apple. Like I don't make apples right now.
Mm-hmm.
But we insist and we push and we push and we push. Dude, you gotta flow with life, man. Like life fucking flows.
There is nothing, and I'm gonna say it, and might say it twice so everybody hears it once. For real. There's nothing in life that is gonna show up for you the way that you envision it. Nothing. And by you trying to put a square peg in a round hole, you are going to be frustrated your entire life. And this is something I want to get across to the men as a man who just got divorced and who will take ownership of what I played in our marriage. Men, you think that your wife doesn't give a shit about you. I'm going to let you in on a secret. I don't think you know how to communicate to your wife. And what I mean by that is we are so quick to create stories in our head of what we think another person thinks of us. And yet we haven't even asked the questions necessary to gain the information we need to address the situation properly. It amazes me. I ask my friends all the time, well, this person said this and this person said, well, did they really say that? No. I just think that's what they think. Okay, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. You're jumping to the conclusion.
Yeah, I had a call with a coaching client yesterday too, and it's very funny that you say this. My family has a problem paying me for what I do now. I'm like, okay. Is that what your family said? No, they've never said that. Okay, so do you have a problem charging them for what you're doing? She's like, no. Okay, so why don't you charge them? Well, because I feel like they expect it of me. Did they say that? No, they've never said that. Okay. But if you go to your family member that does a specific job and they do something for you, do you expect to pay? She's like, yes. And do you let them not make you pay? She's like, no, I always paid them because that's what they do for a living. I'm like, how does this not fucking work in your own life? Like, how does this, why?
And
What is the role? What
Self-
role are you trying to play?
And I am just as guilty of this. You know what I had to do Friday? I did it, man. You'd be so proud of me. Brad Johnson's proud of me. Everybody's proud of me. Because I want to help, right? I'm a people pleaser. I want to help. I want to help everybody. But I had a girl who wants coaching, who kept, this happened 3 or 4 times. So I don't mean to call her out. I'm not calling her out. But this happened 3 or 4 times. They keep asking me questions, and I'm like trying to have like lunch with like friends and stuff, and I'm trying to help. And then I thought to myself, like, wait, this is what I do for a living. I was like, hey, this is exactly what I do in coaching sessions. If you'd like those, I'm happy to do it there. I just left it there. And that was so empowering for me because it was the first time that I resonated with my worth. And I think that's what it's about. Is that you don't deem, right? You don't go to Discount Tire and you're not in there like putting the tires on and be like, dude, I got this, bro. Don't worry about it. Like, no, you're paying for a service. You know what I'm saying? And we as people discredit the service that we provide to everybody.
Yeah. But you got to be aware of your shit, right? So when you're doing your work and you're understanding the man that you are and how you have wind up being the way you are, right? I did a lot of Landmark, and Landmark is so powerful for that reason. Like, you got to understand that, like, no matter how you show up and the limitations that you have, even with your real estate investing, right? They come from other parts of your life, and you just bring that programming to real estate investing. And until you realize what happened in your life that made you say, I'm not worthy, or I need to be a people's pleaser, or I need to be a good guy, or I need to be a good soldier, right? That's typical things that we do as men, right? It's like, I need to be a certain way. Until you realize the programming that you've given yourself, you're fucked. Because you won't realize it, but it plays in all different shapes,
aspects,
on all different areas of your life. And I guarantee you, if you're like, I'm not succeeding as a real estate investor, and we look at your life, the thing that is preventing you in other areas of your life is preventing you in your real estate investing. And I'm sorry if you hear a dog snoring. I have an English bulldog underneath my legs, and she snores like a motherfucker.
No, you're good. But it's so funny that you say that, and I'll relate it to alcoholism, right? Because I can go there. And my coach had to teach me this. When somebody says, I'd really like to stop drinking, you can't just say, oh, quit drinking. Because that's not how it works. We have to go back to the source of the reason you're drinking in the first place, but nobody wants to go there because that's scary. And we might not know. Dude, this is a true story. And guys, this is going to resonate with so many people. And I've never shared this on a podcast before. Because my marriage was not great for a couple years. But you want to know why I didn't work on it? Because I knew the moment that I started working on it, we would get divorced. That's that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Because I knew if I worked on it and got better, we weren't supposed to be together. That was like, holy crap. And the moment I did, the moment I got sober, and the moment I woke up to it, guess what? We got divorced. Because I was so comfortable in the comfort zone. Because it was what I was supposed to do. You're supposed to get married at 25, and you're supposed to buy the house, and you're supposed to do all this. And the scary thing at 38 years old is to blow up your entire life. And literally I have 7 boxes to my name. Like, and I'm living in 250 square feet on a farm with 30 animals. But I don't have crap in my life, but I'm the happiest I've ever been because the distractions not teaching me to not look at the real issues that I'm addressing. Because let's be honest, when 2 people decide to part ways after 13 years, there's some tough conversations of looking at yourself, and she's pointing things out that are real. Like, people that are closest to you, you destroy. because they're in your wheelhouse. Your friends and family, oh, that's easy. Like, those are some things that you have to sit with.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, holy crap. And I had some huge epiphanies and breakthroughs in the first couple of months after the like apologizing to people from like 12 years ago. Like, that you're like, oh, I've been a fucking dick. Like, but everybody sees me as this like nice human. But I'm like, dude, I was a mean SOB when I was drinking. But I was like, oh, but it's cool because, he's fun. No, like, it's not cool. Those people got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we don't want to wake up to those things because the comfort zone's so easy. Right? But my question to you, and I think you ask yourself on this daily basis, like, one of my favorite quotes is, I'd rather be at the bottom than stuck in the middle. Like, I don't want to be mediocre, guys. And so the reason, we have somebody that we mutually know, Sal from M1, and my brother from another mother. And, he gave me a gift. He told me when we separated, he said, Austin, you have a chance to seek happiness 100% and live the next 40 years of your life. You have a second opportunity at your life. Don't not take it because you're scared of what's on the other side.
Fucking Sal.
And that was the oh my God moment,
But that mindset is the same that you can bring to getting fired by a job. You know what I mean? It's all about it. It's all about how you see it. And it goes back to early what we said. Does life happens for you, never to you. Right? Mm-hmm. And understanding that, like, and I think Rock used to say this, I don't know if it's a quote of his or not, but it's the quality of your life is related to the quality of the conversations that you're willing to have. So how hard of conversations you're going to have, the reverse is going to be through how easy is your life going to be. And I think a lot of the time people just want an easy life and not to have hard conversations, but that doesn't happen. Because if you don't speak your truth, it's not like that your truth goes away. You're just pushing it down the ball and pushing it down the ball, and you're adding oxygen and carbonation, and you're pushing it down and you're pushing it down. But sooner or later, you got to bubble up, right? Or you're going to keep numbing yourself and numbing yourself and numbing yourself and not understanding what life feels so shitty. But you haven't said a word that is true since fucking God knows how long. So how are you supposed to, how are you supposed to believe in yourself when you're like, this year I'm going to start being a real estate investor. I'm going to buy my first property by the end of the year. So we're recording this, September 23rd. It's 100% possible for anybody with any level of real estate by December of this year to have one rental property, right? But your programming needs to change, and you're now no longer Joe that works as an accountant. You're Joe, the real estate agent that also works as an accountant, right? So you need to start downloading new thoughts, new beliefs, new patterns into who you are to become who you are. So you got to believe in the new version of you long enough to get rid of the old version of you.
Oh, no. And you know what I did? I saw an episode of Ed Milet, and he had the coach for Dr. Phil on there. And how I did that, I had a character version of myself that we call Tasmanian Devil. And he was, he was crazy and everything. He had some qualities I liked, but he didn't have everything I wanted. So I created a character called Clint Eastwood. And he was 45-year-old version of me, and he didn't give a shit about anybody, and the deals came to him. And, all these qualities that I loved, right? And I used to step into rooms, networking, going, you're Clint Eastwood. And I embodied those values so much that I just became that person and shedded the old version of myself. Mm-hmm. Bro, it's a game. Life is a game. Make it up. Change some stuff. Like, I'm going to be that person, and I'm going to do all that stuff. And I know we got a hard stop. I could talk forever. I want you to give some value to all the real estate investors. I know you have millions of units, millions of Airbnbs. I'm so sick of talking about Airbnb. I don't want to talk about it anymore, so I'm not going to talk about it. But I want you to give a brand new investor, somebody that's just getting started, the top 3 tips to, I don't know, like you said, getting your property by December?
Yeah. Whew. Shit. Okay. So number one, it's you got to let go of the thought that real estate investing is going to be your freedom, because that is true, that it can be your freedom, but it's going to take you a while, right? You have to understand that most investors, Brendan Turner from Bigger Pockets, which is a huge investor, Mike says, my goal is to cash flow $100 a door. You know how many fucking doors you need to have to cash flow to replace an income of $8,000 to $10,000 at $100 at the time? But if you focus on that, and if you focus on hitting home runs, you're never going to start. Real estate is base hit after base hit after base hit. And eventually the time will come that you have all bases full and you just whack it and you hit a home run. And then all the effort is going to come in. So first of all, is understanding it's not a get rich quick. Anybody that tells you otherwise, please run the other way. There is no course, no formula, no mentor, no anything. That unless you're starting with a shit ton of money, it's a grind, right? Number two, this comes from my hospitality side, but as a landlord, be a person, right? If you want to do Airbnb hosting, be a person. And we talked about this on our podcast. You have a responsibility towards the people that are choosing to stay in your Airbnbs or choosing to rent your property. And that's a responsibility for you to take care of them. You raised your hand and you said, I want to be a landlord or I want to be an Airbnb host. It comes with responsibility. You can't just look at the money, right? So take care of people, go the extra mile, and really make people feel like they're worth something, right? Like give people value. They chose to stay in your property. They chose to live in your house. Don't ignore them. Take care of them, right? Because there's nothing worse than feeling ignored by somebody. And when it comes to your housing situation, you're fucking with somebody's basic human needs of shelter. So you also have to understand, don't be a slumlord, what they used to be called slumlord, right? It's like be a human being. And then lessons are everywhere, bro. Like real estate, it's such a kind business because it has so many aspects to it that you can literally choose any aspect for any length of time, right? But look at it, as we were saying, right? Look at it as opportunity, lessons, and if something doesn't work, get out of it and do something else. But do it one at a time. I did exclusively Airbnbs for years before I even lifted up my head to look at what else was there. But when I did lift up my head, I had a team behind me that could support my Airbnb business and allow me to lift up my head and seeing what other opportunities are there. Because if you're just going to be running around from one bush to the other bush to the other bush, you're not going to find any food, right? You got to take your time. You got to learn it. You got to see it. You got to see if it aligns with you, right? Can you make money being a wholesaler? Absolutely. Can you make money being an Airbnb host? Absolutely. Syndication? Yes. Property appraiser? Yes. Realtor? Yes. Whatever, any part of real estate you can make money in. But if you go through all of them all at the same time, nothing is going to happen. So I think we're those three.
Dude, man, that was the best because that wasn't that was so great. That was awesome, man. We could do this for 2 hours.
Bro, whenever you want. Maybe we should do one where we're more on real estate. If your people need one that is more real estate specific.
What I'm doing, it's funny that you say that. What I'm doing now is every Wednesday or Tuesday, I'm doing a live on Facebook, and I'm trying to get Instagram and Face. So we'll bring you on, and we'll talk about your units in a couple weeks. We'll bang it out.
Whenever you want. We can talk about raising money, Airbnb, what a team looks like, what the systems are, real
How
estate.
How do people get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you?
I mean, you can find me on Instagram, Pani Real Estate. You can look up our short-term rental podcast. It's called SDR Secrets. We have people like Austin on it, so it's quite good. And yeah, really Instagram, email. Do people even use emails nowadays?
I don't know.
Slide into people's DMs. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pani Real Estate on Instagram, and it's been such a pleasure, bro. I really appreciated the hour.
One of my faves. Seriously, thank you so much.
Pleasure, brother.
If y'all like this episode, make sure you share it with your friends, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.